The Sentry. Do you have a hard time relaxing? When things are calm, do you feel more anxious, not less? It's the biological inability to let your guard down. In a traumatic environment, relaxation is dangerous. If your ancestors survived by being constantly aware of threats, their nervous systems got stuck in the on position. You've inherited this setting. You scan every room you walk into. You analyze every shift in tone of voice. You're exhausted because your brain is running a 24/7 security detail for a threat that isn't there. So whenever things are going well, your nervous system sounds the alarm. You can't celebrate good news without waiting for the other shoe to drop. You can't enjoy a quiet evening without your brain inventing problems to worry about. You're keeping watch for a ghost, fighting an enemy that died decades ago. And the cruelest part? You can't even put the gun down, the peacekeeper. This is often called fawning. It's the survival strategy of the powerless. If you grew up in a lineage where conflict was dangerous, you learned that safety meant silence. You have the uncanny ability to read the emotional temperature of a room instantly. You change your personality to fit whoever you're talking to. You apologize when you haven't done anything wrong. You think you're just nice or empathetic, but this isn't empathy. You're managing everyone else's emotions because your ancestors learned that if the people in charge aren't happy, nobody is safe. You've become so good at reading other people that you've forgotten how to read yourself. You know exactly what everyone else needs, wants, and feels, but if someone asks you what you want, you genuinely don't know because you've spent your entire life optimizing for everyone else's comfort that you've never developed your own preferences. You're not a people pleaser by nature. You're a highly trained emotional bodyguard, but nobody hired you for this job. You just inherited the uniform. The echo. Have you ever found yourself screaming at a partner or shutting down in an argument and thought, "Oh my God, I sound exactly like my mother"? This is the subconscious repetition of the very patterns you swore you would break. If your parents never learned how to regulate their nervous systems, they couldn't teach you how to regulate yours. So when you get stressed, your brain reverts to the only software it has installed, the one your parents used. Here's the irony. The behaviors you hated most in your parents, the ones you promised yourself you'd never repeat, are the exact ones that emerge when you're overwhelmed. You hear your mother's words coming out of your mouth. You feel your father's rage coursing through your veins, and you hate yourself for it. But you're not becoming them. You're just accessing the only crisis management system you were ever given. Your brain reaches for the familiar, even if the familiar is toxic. You're not failing. You're just discovering that knowing better doesn't automatically mean doing better, especially when the wiring was installed before you could even speak. The vessel. Do you have chronic pain, autoimmune issues, or stomach problems that doctors can't explain? There's a famous book called The Body Keeps the Score. It argues that trauma isn't just stored in the brain, it's trapped in the tissue. If your ancestors had to swallow their grief, their anger, or their fear to survive, that energy didn't just disappear, it went inward. You might be the generation that physically manifests the pain of the family line. Your migraines, your fatigue, your tension, these might be the somatic expression of secrets that were never spoken. Here's what makes this so frustrating. You go to doctor after doctor. They run tests. Everything comes back normal. They start to imply it's all in your head, and technically, they're right. It started in someone's head. It just wasn't yours. It's holding the grief your grandmother couldn't express. It's carrying the rage your grandfather had to suppress. It's storing the terror that nobody in your family was allowed to acknowledge. You're not imagining the pain. You're just experiencing it in a body that doesn't understand why it hurts because the wound was inflicted on someone else entirely.
The vault. Was there a rule in your house that we don't talk about that? In families with generational trauma, secrecy is the currency of survival. Emotions are viewed as weaknesses. Mistakes are hidden to protect the family image. You might feel a deep, irrational shame whenever you try to talk about your feelings. You're surrounded by family, yet you feel completely unknown. You can be sitting at a family dinner, surrounded by people who share your blood, and feel like a complete stranger because everyone is performing a role. Everyone is maintaining rewriting the script. And if you dare to break character, you become the problem. The family doesn't reject you for lying. They reject you for telling the truth. You've learned that love is conditional on silence. So you smile through the pain, you keep the secrets, and you slowly disappear under the weight of everything you're not allowed to say. The inheritor. Do you feel guilty when you're happy? Do you feel like success is somehow a betrayal of your roots? This is the guilt of the survivor. If your parents or grandparents struggled, you might subconsciously believe that your suffering is how you stay connected to them. If you become wealthy or happy or calm, you feel like you're leaving them behind. You self-sabotage. You get a good job and then you get depressed. You find a healthy relationship and you pick a fight. Here's the cruelest part. Your family might have suffered so you could have a better life. They sacrificed everything so you wouldn't have to struggle the way they did. But instead of enjoying what they gave you, you feel guilty for having it. You can't celebrate your wins because they feel like evidence of your family's losses. So you sabotage every good thing that comes your way, not because you don't want it, but because some part of you believes that your pain is the only thread still connecting you to the people who raised you. The ghost. This is the sign of dissociation, when the environment is too overwhelming for a child to process and they cannot leave physically, they leave mentally. You might find that you have large gaps in your childhood memory. When things get stressful, you just check out. You feel like you're watching your life through a pane of glass. This isn't an attention problem. It's a biological emergency brake. Your ancestors learned that to survive the unbearable, they had to stop feeling. You've inherited the ability to vanish while still being in the room. People think you're calm under pressure. They think you handle stress well, but you're not handling it. You're disappearing from it. You might not even realize you're doing it. You're not living your life. You're buffering through it. And when you do come back, the backlog of emotion hits you all at once like a tidal wave. The black sheep. Are you the problem child, the one everyone blames for ruining holidays? In a toxic system, the person who speaks the truth is the threat. You're the only one who refuses to play the game. They call you difficult, they call you dramatic, but actually, you're the antibody. You're not the problem in the family. You're the solution. You're the person who finally said, this isn't normal. You're the one who broke the silence, who pointed at the elephant in the room that everyone else agreed to ignore, and they hate you for it. Not because you're wrong, but because you're right. Because if they acknowledge that you're right, they have to admit their own pain. They have to face everything they've been running from for generations. So it's easier to make you the villain. It's easier to say you're too sensitive, too dramatic. But actually, you're the immune response trying to fight the infection that has plagued your bloodline for decades. If you saw any of these within yourself, I want you to know something important. Generational trauma stops with the person who is brave enough to feel it. You didn't start this war, but you can end it. Not by winning, but by laying down your weapons. You're the beginning of the healing. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button. We break down the psychology behind the things you feel, but can never quite put into words. Thanks for watching. And remember, you're not broken. You're just carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with.